Okay, welcome back to Biochemistry, Amino Acids and Proteins Quiz Part 2. So, we earlier covered Part 1 and we ended on question 5. So, in Part 2, we'll continue from question 6 until question 10. I hope you have studied your amino acids and proteins and you are ready to test your knowledge. Okay, let's start with question 6. Question 6. Protein denaturation usually results in loss of protein. Protein denaturation usually results in loss of protein. A. Function. B. Sequence. C. Amino acids. D. Peptide bonds. Okay, you have 5 seconds. So the correct answer is A. Function. Okay, so protein denaturation occurs when the three-dimensional structure of protein is altered by factors such as heat, extreme pH, or chemicals. Okay, this change in shape causes the protein to lose its normal biological function. While the primary amino acid sequence usually remains unchanged. Okay, so the primary amino acid sequence usually remains unchanged. Why other options are wrong? So option B, the amino acid sequence. So the amino acid sequence represents the primary structure, which is usually preserved during denaturation. Okay, then option C is also wrong because individual amino acids are not removed during denaturation. Only the protein's shape and folding are affected. Okay, then option D is also wrong because peptide bonds are strong covalent bonds and are generally not broken during normal denaturation. Okay, so here is an exam tip. Always remember, denaturation changes protein shape and function, not the amino acid sequence. Okay, so remember, denaturation changes protein shape and function, not the amino acid sequence. Okay, let's go to question 7. So, which protein functions as an oxygen transport molecule? Which protein functions as an oxygen transport molecule? A. Collagen. B. Hemoglobin. C. Albumin. D. Keratin. You have 5 seconds. So the correct answer is B. Hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is a globular protein found inside the red blood cells that transport oxygen from the lungs to the body tissues. Okay, it contains a hem group with ion that binds oxygen molecules. Okay, and here is an exam tip. Think of hemoglobin for oxygen transport and myoglobin for oxygen storage in muscles. Okay, so let me go through again. Always think of hemoglobin for oxygen transport and myoglobin for oxygen storage in muscles. This is a frequent question which is asked in examinations. So the question, they might ask you a question of differentiate between hemoglobin and myoglobin. So this is one of the differences. So hemoglobin for oxygen transport and myoglobin for oxygen storage. So there are many differences between hemoglobin and myoglobin. Yeah, but we'll make another video to discuss the differences in details, and also why other options are wrong on question 7. So option A, collagen. So collagen is a structural protein that provides strength to connective tissues such as tendons, ligaments, and bones. Okay, then also option C is wrong because albumin is a plasma protein involved mainly in maintaining ocontic pressure and transporting various substances in blood. Okay, then also option D, keratin. Keratin is a structural protein found in skin, hair, and nails and does not transport oxygen. Okay, so that's that. Let's go to question 8. So question 8, which plasma protein maintains blood ocontic pressure? Which plasma protein maintains blood ocontic pressure? Actually, from mentioning it, let's hope you get this right. So A, albumin, B, fibrinogen, C, globulin, D, hemoglobin. You have 5 seconds. So the correct answer is A, albumin. Okay, so as we earlier discussed, or as I earlier mentioned in question 7, so albumin is the most abundant protein found in plasma, and it plays a major role in maintaining plasma ocontic pressure. It helps keep fluid inside blood vessels by attracting and retaining water. Okay, so why other options are wrong? Let's start with option B. So option B, fibrinogen. So fibrinogen is involved in blood coagulation and is converted into fibrin during what? Clot formation. Okay, then also option C is wrong because globulins mainly function in immunity, transport, and antibody related activities. Okay, then option D is also wrong because, as we earlier discussed, hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is an intracellular protein found inside red blood cells rather than plasma, and it usually helps in transporting oxygen. Okay, here is an exam tip. So a decrease in albumin reduces ocontic pressure and can lead to edema due to fluid movement into tissues. Okay, let me go through that again. So a decrease in albumin protein reduces ocontic pressure and can lead to edema due to fluid movement into the tissues. Okay, then let's go to question 9. So question 9, which amino acid contains sulfur in its side chain? Which amino acid contains sulfur in its side chain? A, valine, B, cysteine, C, lysine, D, aspartate. You have 5 seconds. So the correct answer is B, cysteine. So here is an explanation. So cysteine contains a sulfur hydryl group containing sulfur in its side chain. So two cysteine molecules can form disulfide bonds, which helps stabilize protein structures. Okay, so two cysteine molecules can form disulfide bonds, which help stabilize protein structure. Why other options are wrong? So option A, which is valine. So valine is a branched chain amino acid with a non-polar side chain and does not contain sulfur. And also option C, lysine. So lysine is a basic amino acid with a positively charged side chain but does not contain sulfur. Okay, then also option D is wrong because aspartate is an acidic amino acid containing a carboxyl group rather than sulfur. Okay, here is an exam tip. Kindly listen. Remember, cysteine forms disulfide bonds. Methionine contains sulfur but does not form disulfide bonds. Always remember for the exam. So both cysteine and methionine, they both contain sulfur, but the difference is cysteine forms disulfide bonds, but methionine contains sulfur and does not form disulfide bond. Okay, let's go to question 10. So question 10, the tertiary structure of a protein, describe its. The tertiary structure of a protein, describe its. This time I think you are able now to answer this question. Okay, so the options are A, amino acid order, a tertiary structure. It describes an amino acid order. B, local folding. C, three-dimensional shape. D, multiple subunits. You have 5 seconds. Okay, so the answer is C, three-dimensional shape. I think we earlier describes this. So here is an explanation. So tertiary structure refers to the complete three-dimensional arrangement of a single polypeptide chain. Okay, then it also results from interactions between amino acid chains, including hydrogen bonds, ionic interactions, hydrophobic interactions, and disulfide bonds. Okay, why other options are wrong? Option A, amino acid order. So amino acid order describes the primary structure, which is the sequence of amino acid linked by a peptide bond. Okay, then option B is also wrong because local folding describe secondary structure, including alpha and beta sheets. Okay, and also option D is wrong because multiple subunits describe quaternary structure where separate polypeptide chains combine. Okay, so multiple subunits describe quaternary structure where separate polypeptide chains combine. Okay, here is an exam tip. So protein structure, always remember this protein structure from primary to quaternary. So primary is always equal to sequence. So primary structure is in sequence. Then secondary structure is local folding. Then tertiary structure is equal to 3D shape of one chain. Okay, then quaternary structure is equal to multiple chains. Always remember this structural classification of proteins. Okay, so we have come to the end of part 2. Kindly stay tuned for part 3. Thank you.